Hey, how's it going? I'm Jackson. In the last couple years, a few games have stood out to me as special, and there's something common between them. Now, I do think you could say that what unites them is that they're excellent games. But I also think that what they have in common is the fact that I'm just a better gamer than most people. That's right. I'm talking about the stupidly punishing games. My journey with these games started a couple years ago when I purchased Elden Ring finally, and it took over every spare moment I had in my life. Since then, I've become obsessed with a variety of similarly mean games like Dark Souls, Balatro, Nubby's Number Factory, and the most recent example being the absolute virus on my brain of Hollow Knight Silksong. There are for sure some valid complaints about Silksong, like the runbacks can be pretty annoying, and then this absolute shitbag. But I think there's a secret delicious sauce that allows these games to be as unflinching and punishing as they are that's often overlooked. And that is the rules. I know when I say rules, you're probably thinking of somebody explaining Settlers of Catan, you sobbing actual tears and having no idea what's going on because the rules are chaotic and hard to follow, and I say that as someone who loves Settlers. But let me explain. Without the specific numbers and rules holding these games together, they wouldn't be able to keep inflicting the same punishing, intense, insane gameplay on you over and over and over again. These rules may be hard to notice at first, but I'll give you 3 straightforward examples and walk you through exactly what I'm talking about. To kick things off, the easiest way to demonstrate these rules is in a game where it's just blatantly and explicitly written down for you. But there are a million videos about Local Thunk's masterpiece. Is it going to focus on this? Yeah. So, instead, let's randomly pick one of the games inspired by it. Nubby's Number Factory. The basic idea of Nubby's is that you're working in a factory for a manager trying to direct Nubby to collect stakeholder value. It doesn't feel as punishing as our other examples, but that's because you're not dealing with the timing of the boss trying to kill you. You're just dealing with the punishment of roguelikes, which is having to fully restart whenever you don't fulfill whatever the manager's satisfaction. So let's break down the rules. The reason I picked Nubby's as our example for this is I don't know if I've ever played a game that wears its rules and its rubric and its instructions like this so blatantly on its sleeves as our factory does. Every single detail you need is on the screen right now. The point of the game is to hit this round goal each round. It's Plinko style, so you launch the ball, Nubby, and every peg he hits, he gets the points written on the peg, and the peg's value cuts in half. As you earn points, this bar over here is a visual representation of the percentage of points you need to hit the goal. If you fail to hit the goal on a shot, you lose a life, and if you run out of lives, you have to fully start over. However, every time you pass a goal, you get an extra life and you get a coin. Now you may be wondering, hey Jackson, what are the coins for? I'm glad you asked because that is the next layer of the sandwich that is Nubby's Number Factory. Bet you didn't know it was a sandwich. Every 5 rounds, as detailed by the little dial here, you'll get a chance to buy an item from the Nubby Mart, and this is where the game gets really fun. Every item has a few rules that apply to it, so I'll pick one of my favorites from the early game, Poop Butt, and we'll use it as an example. Within the Poop Butt's description, there are a few things. You have the trigger, you have the effect, and with the Poop Butt, you also get the current reward amount. The trigger is first peg popped. The effect is gain plus 15 points for every time the board has restocked this game. So basically, every time Nubby hits the first peg of a round, you get a current reward amount. Get a little bit more coffee. You can tell in this example that the current reward amount is actually already more than the score you need for the round. And that's just when the first peg is hit. So restocking the board and adding points to poop is kind of a cyclical cycle. And that's before you even get to what this silly ray gun perk does. The ray gun has a 40% chance to force trigger the item in slot 3, where we have Poop Butt, every time a peg is fully popped. So you're probably getting that reward a couple times around. And that's just one perk and one item. And as you can see here, you can have 7 items and I think an infinite number of perks. So you can pretty easily imagine the absolute crazy builds you can put together once you understand every piece of the rules. I say this as a full endorsement and compliment of the game, but our friend group's goal ended up just being who can make the game crash by having the most animations and numbers flashing at the same time. But not every game has its numbers and rules written on its sleeve the same way our friends down at the factory do. Like I said before, the first game that instilled this kind of punishing reward cycle for me was Elden Ring. And let me tell you, Elden Ring did not stop instilling the rules in me. I know that other FromSoft and Souls-like games are more punishing, supposedly, but Elden Ring's hard. I tried to find a simple early boss in the game, so I wasn't spoiling the real juice of the beauty that is this game. And even just recording this footage, somebody who's 100% of the game, this boss beat me and beat me and beat me. The way Elden Ring is punishing is in its combat. Sure, there are other mechanics, like losing all of your runes when you die and the runbacks you have to deal with to return to the boss. But I think the core of the punishment in both this and the Hollow Knight games is the difficulty baked into each combat encounter. So picking a difficult boss was easy, I just had to pick a boss. Which is why today, I'll be using this adorable darling, the Erdtree Burial Watchdog, as our example. The rules of the bosses in Elden Ring are pretty straightforward. Obviously, some of them are a little bit more nuanced or difficult than others, but they all pretty much follow these rules, so I'll break it down into 3 pieces. 1. Based on how close you are to them and what they have just done, they will give some kind of indicator, large or small, to show what their next move is going to be. I'll say usually that indicator very small. 2. They try and hit you in some kind of way, whether it be a specific punch or area effect. This is where the actual damage happens, and it's usually extremely unforgiving and extremely fast. And then 3, they begin to transition to their next move, so looping back to the prediction for the next move. The Watchdog has around 6 or 7 different attacks, as far as I could tell, and they all follow this system. So with all of this in mind, you can start to kind of imagine a flow pattern of how you would approach a fight like this. While staying aware of what move they look like they're about to do, you could poke them a little bit, give yourself some space to dodge, and then sneak back in to poke them again. It's much easier on paper, obviously, but these rules make it where every time you die, or almost every time at least, the thought you have is, well, if I can just get away a little bit faster, or if I can just dodge left when they do that, I bet I can beat this dog. That feeling is necessary, though, to try again. That feeling is driven by the rules. If the numbers weren't exact, you'd be thinking, well, okay, how the hell did that happen? And personally, I find myself trying again way more quickly when I can see the exact mistake I made. This is why Dark Souls and Elden Ring and Souls-like games get a lot of speedrunners doing the no-hit challenge. Because once you understand and know these rules, you can follow them. You can predict them, you can play in a way where you're learning and adapting and improving. I'll add that within Elden Ring, one of the most treasured features is also the ability to customize your character and kit immensely, so each item and skill and upgrade and everything will affect how these attacks affect you and how you can punish the space between them. So changing your kit for sure can turn an impossible fight into a possible one. But for me, the biggest thing was always understanding the pattern, or for the sake of my thesis, I'll say, the rules. Now finally, to last year's long-awaited title, Hollow Knight Skong. I played the first one about a year after it came out, and since then, I've found pretty much every single possible opportunity to talk about it, to my entire family's chagrin. Similar to Elden Ring, so much of this game is about exploration, and so I didn't want to spoil it by showing you something crazy deep into the story. Luckily, about 20 minutes in for an average player, you encounter a boss that turns out to be one of our most treasured friends, after you beat him, of course, the Bell Beast. The Bell Beast is probably the first boss that gives most players any real trouble. I say that because he was the first boss that gave me any real trouble. Similar to Elden Ring, I got 100% completion in this game, not to brag, but even fighting the Bell Beast again for the first time in a little while, recording this footage, he cooked me once. However, before we get to his fight, it's important to note a pretty basic rule in any action platformer like this. If your character model gets hit by the enemy character model, or a projectile sent by the enemy character model, you take damage. Now with that in mind, back to Beastie specifically. His moveset is very simple, which makes finding the rules very easy. Similar to Elden Ring, each of these has a bit of a warning, an attack, and a cooldown, but this time we'll walk through each move specifically. The first one is the slide, where Beelzebub rises from the ground, slides across the floor, and then dives back below. Second is the jump over, where he shakes from the ground longer on one side, jumps across the top of the screen, and dives back below. And last is the bell drop, where he shakes and then rises from the middle, a bell goes up on each side with him, falls down, and then bounces past in both directions while he dives back into the ground. Since there are so few moves, we can break down an actual moment of gameplay. We see right here that he's coming up from the ground on one side, so we know it's not the bell drop, and it's taking a little while, so we know it's probably the jump over. And with that, our strategy can be getting low and poking him from down under. So what have we learned? Now that we know all these rules, it should be easy to just dodge all these attacks, poke in when we need to, and get through each boss fight, right? Please? No. But since you know the rules, now you can play better, and you can learn from your mistakes. And that's something I love when I'm playing a video game, is feeling like I'm improving, and learning what I can do better, and trying again, and trying again, and trying again. While I was playing this game for the first time, I read somewhere that it really helps to have a strategy of survival instead of attack. When you're running around fighting some of these bosses, especially later in the game, surviving can feel completely impossible, especially when you're also trying to fit an attack in. So, I think around Act 3, I established a new routine with every boss fight. On the first encounter, I do not attack the boss at all for the first minute or so of the fight. That way, I'm able to understand, analyze, and see kind of the rules and the attacks and so on and so forth. And even when I inevitably failed and had my ass handed to me by a bug that looks so cool, each of us has thought of getting a tattoo of it, I kept finding myself saying, well, the rules are clear, I just have to be a little bit better. Thanks for watching. I'm Old Jackson Boy, and I'll catch you next time.